Alright guys, so once again I am Ross, and this is going to be part 2 of how to remove your engine and transmission out of your 2002 through 2006 Nissan Sentra SER Spec V, specifically the QR25DE. So if you watched yesterday's video, you'll know where we're at. The car's back on the ground, and I'll explain why it's back on the ground. Mostly because I didn't want to leave it on jack stands all night. But there is some other purposes on why I put it on the ground and why it's still on the ground. I got everything out there prepped and ready for what I need to go for the most part. Got the engine hoist out there, and let's just dive into part 2 already. Alright, so we're back over here fixing this. Like I said yesterday, I still need to do motor mounts. First thing that's coming off of is that strut bar. That's the UR strut bar. If you guys aren't familiar with it, it's pretty nice. I've had it on there since the last time I did this job, actually. No complaints so far. Taking it off isn't as easy as like the OEM one, because it's all one solid piece instead of 3 pieces that the factory one is. So that's coming off, the ECU's coming off. And then we're going to break these wheel bolts loose, axle nuts. You gotta take the cotter pins off. We'll take those off before I ended up jacking up the car. But same thing on this side, you're gonna do both sides, just that way you can deal with the axles. So let's get this strut bar off. When you get this strut bar off, it's just going to be these 3 bolts. I believe these are 13s. If I'm right. I'll let you guys know here in a second though. It shouldn't be too hard to get this off. It's only 6 bolts. We're going to put those bolts back on the coilover so that way they don't fall when you jack up the car. And just like that, 6 13mm bolts. Pull it straight up the top once all 6 are undone, and that bar comes right off. Next, like I said, we're going to go for the ECU. Apparently I'm missing a bolt there, but there's another 10mm bolt right there. Once I get that 10mm off, I'm just going to drape it over here for now. So I'll let you guys know when I get that done. Okay, so I pulled out that ECU. I just have it crossed over right now. When I go and put the chains on to pull the motor here in a little bit, we'll tidy that up so that way it's not in the way. I might take it out of the case, actually, take the ECU out and just leave the plugs there so that way it's less stuff. Next, I'm going to loosen this wheel. I got locking wheel lugs, so I have to have this key. If you've got locking wheel keys or whatever, you're gonna need your key, and I'm gonna loosen them, jack up the car, and then put jack stands underneath, and then start working on pulling these wheels, pulling these axles. So I'll let you know when the car has the wheels off and it's on jack stands. Okay, so now we have the car jacked up, wheels are off the ground. I've already loosened these bolts, so now it's just taking the wheel off itself, and on both sides, and then we were moving to getting the axles out. After we get the axles out, I'm gonna put in these. I've got like broken axles that I use, or I'm gonna try to use, I guess, to try to save some transmission fluid. So that wheel's off. I'll go do the other side and then work on these axles. I'll let you guys know what happens. Alright, so we're back. Wheels are off. Took the cotter pins off on both sides as well. This side right here is going to be a 36. For some reason, I bought a new axle, came with a 36mm nut, and the other side's a 32. my suggestion on this is, if you don't have like an impact, to put your wheel back on, throw like 2 lug nuts on that wheel, get a breaker bar and break this nut loose, and then you should be able to get it off there pretty easily. But I'm lucky enough to have an impact, so I'm just going to zip mine off. I could probably do this on film. So we'll start with this side. I already have my sockets already laid out right here, so that way I can knock this out. That one's done. Go to the other side real quick. This one might be a little bit more of a pain. I lied. It was easier. So now that those are off, I'm gonna go put those away so I don't lose them. I can start taking off axle stuff. I'll probably just do these 2 bolts right here. I believe they're 17s. Drop the knuckle down. I have aftermarket brakes, the Z32 brakes with the 300ZX to 240 lines, so that allows me to have a little bit more play and just let this kind of dangle down. So I'm gonna knock that out and get these axles out. Alright, and just like that, dropped this down, pulled out the axle. I've noticed if I go this way with this one, I can pull it out, the axle, that way. Got the drip pan underneath there, and then I've got a broken axle over there that I'm going to try to, when I pull this one in, slide that one in so I don't lose entirely too much fluids. But I am using that catch can or drip pan in order to catch any fluids so I don't make a mess. I'm gonna see if I can set you guys up so you guys can see this. Okay, so for some reason this axle is being a pain in the ass. Okay, so scratch that. This axle is being a pain. I should be able to drop it down and be able to get it. For some reason it's just not coming out of there. I'm gonna move on to the other side, and I'm not gonna sit here and waste my time struggling over here. Maybe when I get the other side, this side will come out easier. Sometimes that's how things happen. If you get stuck at a point, you just move on instead of staying there. So I'm gonna go do the same thing to the other side. The other side's gonna be a little bit different. It's got 3 14mm bolts on that axle carrier. Over there you gotta undo to the block, and I'll show you how to do that. Okay, so we got stuck on the other side. This axle, same thing. Those 2 bolts and nuts come out. Push this off to the side, undo this brake line, and it gives you enough room to get the axle out of the hub. Because of the other side being the way it is, I'm just gonna move on and drop it and get the axles out. I don't know if that's a bright idea. I want to try to save as much trans fluid. I don't know. We'll get back to that here in a second. I'm gonna move on and do the exhaust. So basically I'm gonna do those 2 bolts right there, that flange on the header, and might go underneath and start doing this cross member. I might set up, actually that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna set up the engine hoist so that way I can make sure this thing doesn't fall on me. So we'll be back. Alright, so I grabbed the engine hoist leveler right here. Still gotta find a spot for that ECU. Like I said, I'll probably end up taking it out and just, it's not that many bolts. It's, I think, like 1, 2, 3, 4, I'm missing, supposed to be 5 up there and then 3 in the actual case itself. And then you just unplug it and that whole case just kind of goes with it. So I think I'm just going to do that, and then when I go back to installing it, I'll put it back in. I'm going to go back underneath and mess with the axles. I'm going to take those 3 14mm bolts off. Let's see if I can show you guys. There's 1, 2, and on the other side there's 3. Those are for the axle carriers, and then that bolt right there holds the motor mount. So I'm going to get those bolts. I have solid mounts, so taking that bolt off shouldn't be terrible. I'm going to try to take this axle off. After I get this axle off, hopefully the other side will be smoother. I'll let you guys know. Alright, so got the axle out. I was able to slip in that little broken axle. Let's see if you guys can see it. See that, like, yeah, that'll allow me to keep most of my fluids. I did lose a little bit. You guys can barely even tell. It went into the drip pan. So now to get the other side done, and hopefully it comes off. And with a little bit of effort and a little bit of ingenuity, I was able to get that axle out, put that one in, well, just the placeholder per se. I ended up losing a little bit more, made a slight mess. I'll take some oven cleaner and I'll clean that up later. It's not a big deal. Oven cleaner is a really good product. If you have some, it's a really good engine degreaser and it gets a lot of like oil and stains out. The way I went about getting it out, instead of fighting the axle over here, I took the other one out again and I got a really long screwdriver. Actually, I'll show you. Really long screwdriver, and I placed it through here all the way, and I got my little mallet right there, and I just tapped the end of this screwdriver. Instead of fighting the axle over there and potentially breaking it, I just pushed it out enough and called it a day. So on to the next thing. I'll let you know when I figure out what's next. Alright, so now that we've got pretty much everything done, we're going to move on to this front motor mount. We're going to do these 2 bolts right here, and then we're going to drop the cross member. There's one holding the rear motor mount in the rear. We're going to move on to those, and while I'm down there I'm going to do the exhaust as well. So these 2 right here are 14mm. Your exhaust, depending on what exhaust you have, is going to be dependent on whatever hardware you use, so I'm not even going to mention what size those ones are. The one in the rear, I don't know off the top of my head. When I look at it, I'll be able to tell you guys. So let me get these knocked out of the way, and then I'll get back to you when I get to that rear mount. Alright, so now you can see the exhaust bolts down there are gone. That motor mount bolt is gone. I'm finally going to get to that ECU, get that out of here, and then put the final point on there. I go here, 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 and then I'm going to find a 4th spot back there somewhere. The first gen manifold's a little bit easier. You can just go straight to the manifold because it's metal. Because this one's plastic, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to find a 4th point. Might go off of this motor mount over here, just so that way I have 1, 2, 3, 4 points. So it'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, and it should be enough to get it dropped, and I can readjust it on the ground if I need to. I'd just rather have it set up so that way when I go for the rear stuff, All it is that motor mount, those 3 bolts, and then I'm dropping the thing after the cross member. So I'll get rid of that, hook up that, and get right back to it. Alright, so I'm back. I have the hoist hooked up. Sorry, tired. I don't really like where I have my 4th point right now. It's just to lower it for the time being. I'm going to undo that trans bolt right there and then go do the probably do the trans bolt right here. I'll leave these 3 right here for this motor mount. There's 2 right here, 1 underneath. I'll probably do the one underneath real quick while I'm underneath there, and then do the cross beam, and then it's ready to go down. So I'll let you know when I get the cross member out. Alright, well, so I undid the cross member the best that I can right now. I got a bolt that is not letting go. I had to, I don't know if you guys can see it down there. Hold on, let me see. Zoom you guys in. That little hole right there that has all that PB blaster in it, I drilled that because on the bottom side right here, that last bolt is holding the cross member, and this is just spinning. I've tried a pry bar, I've tried a lot, so now I've drilled a hole as a last resort. Well, it started raining here, so it looks like that bolt's gonna be tomorrow's problem as long as weather permits it. I'm going to put the wheels back on and drop it off the jack stands, remove the engine hoist, and then close it up for the day, and probably edit this after this then. So, let you guys go. Okay, so due to the weather and I have to get to work, I put the car back on the ground, I put the wheels down, put all the tools away real quick, and I'll be back at it again tomorrow. I gotta probably have a buddy come over and he'll help me get that bolt out. I'm probably gonna have him put pressure up top while I loosen it and see if it goes down. It'll probably drop. It'll be fun. Maybe since I have the extra set of hands, I'll hopefully have him film some stuff. It's hard trying to film what I'm doing while trying to work. I can give you guys like a step-by-step process, but at the end of the day, trying to get it done and filming it without a tripod, I'll probably end up going and getting a tripod or something, so that way it'll be a little bit better. It'll just be longer videos that way though. We'll see, but stay tuned for part 3 tomorrow. Hopefully it all goes well.